I'm so glad to bring to you my conversation with Columbia University-trained psychotherapist, mental health advocate, and novelist Jessica Ann Pressler. Take a look. Jessica, I could spend the entire hour speaking to you because so many of us out there have been in toxic relationships, and I want to know from you, how do we identify them like right away, and how do we get out of them? Because I think a lot of us have been there.
Well, let's talk about how it feels to be in a toxic relationship. Do you feel like you're always walking on eggshells? Do you feel like you're not being heard? Do you feel like they're taking whatever you say and turning it against you? Do you feel like you can't be yourself, that you're losing yourself piece by piece, that you're holding on to the way things were or the way things you hoped it's going to be? Chances are you're in a toxic relationship. The other person may have difficulty with boundaries. If you say something to them that you don't even think is a criticism and they jump back at you,
Yeah.
then that's the walking on eggshells piece.
Yeah.
And it just doesn't feel right.
No. I remember having just also that anxious feeling like all the time. And I was like,
Oh.
my gut is saying something. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Tell us about how childhood experiences, I hear this a lot, can affect our relationships in adulthood.
I am a huge believer in that. Of course, I'm trained as a psychotherapist, so that's how I've always thought. But you're a child. You should be in a safe environment, right? And you can even have the best parents, but a parent may be sick or working a lot. So you create safety for yourself in order to usually not feel abandoned, right? So you may be the good child, the invisible child, the person who is funny to make the household calm. You may be the parentified one. You're taking care of your alcoholic father, and you ignore behavior, you make excuses and you self-blame. So you take those things that may have made you feel safe in childhood, may have kept you safe in childhood, and then it comes up again in your adult relationships and how you feel about yourself. So you're in a toxic relationship and all of a sudden now they're cheating on you and you're making excuses. You didn't really see that. So they're gaslighting you and you're gaslighting yourself. Or you're basically self-abandoning. You self-blame because they're acting funny that day, and you say it's your fault. You're doing everything you can, and you stay because you're used to that way it feels in your childhood. You're used to the chaos, and if you're in a healthy relationship where it's not chaotic, you may make it chaotic because even so, it's unhealthy. It feels like home.
Yes,
So,
and familiar. I grew
and
up in a
familiar.
medically traumatic household, and I was the golden child. And so you nailed me. I mean, you were absolutely correct on what I have to do in a relationship to feel, love and not
Right.
abandoned. So that's absolutely right. You also are right. You wrote a book. It's a psychological thriller, which is my favorite genre. It's called Traitor
Oh.
Within. Talk to me about that. I think that's so cool.
Well, I started writing a book about 20 years ago as a more of an academic piece that I was hoping would end up in, graduate school, a textbook about attachment theory, what goes on in your childhood and how it affects your adult relationships. And then I felt I was only going to reach, clinicians. So after many, many years and many evolutions of the book, I decided fiction is the way to go because you're going to teach, it's a self-help book by accident, or, you're going to teach people by reading a story that people can relate to. It's not them. You're actually learning by watching her journey. So the book is about a woman named Cassandra who keeps going from one toxic relationship and abusive relationship to another. And she stays for a very long time. And finally, after many versions of this in her life, many roller coasters, about 30 years, she decides to take time and figure out what it is. And she looks into her childhood and her relationships and the messaging and modeling and the intergenerational trauma because her mother did the same thing that she was doing. So you learn from your childhood.
Yeah. I mean, and then the way you made it fictional is such an easier way to get into it. Because it's saturated with you're doing this, you're doing that, the whole book world. For our audiences, I want you to finish this sentence and then I'm going to let you go. But if you feel, okay, let me just say this correctly. I feel like my boyfriend or girlfriend, I feel like I'm being gaslit. There's a sense of it. I should blank.
Write it down, talk to a friend, talk to a therapist. And if you see a pattern of gaslighting or invalidation, I would tell you to get out.
Run,
Run.
Get out. I'm so glad to have spoken with you, and I really think you're doing a service to a lot of us who have no idea what we're doing. So thank you so much. Learn more about Jessica Ann Pressler on her website, jessicaannpressler.com.